Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about the top 10 rules of war. So before starting this video, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. International humanitarian law, also known as rules of war, is a set of rules which seek, for humanitarian reasons, to limit the effects of armed conflict. It protects persons who are not or are no longer participating in the hostilities and restricts the means and methods of warfare. International humanitarian law is also known as the law of war or the law of armed conflict. International humanitarian law is part of international law, which is the body of rules governing relations between states. International law is contained in agreements between states, treaties or conventions, in customary rules, which consist of state practice considered by them as legally binding and in general principles. International humanitarian law applies to armed conflicts. It does not regulate whether a state may actually use force. This is governed by an important, but distinct, part of international law set out in the United Nations Charter. Here are the top 10 rules of war, also known as international humanitarian law. Number 1. Protect those who are not fighting, such as civilians, medical personnel, or aid workers. Number 2. Protect those who are no longer able to fight, like an injured soldier or a prisoner. Number 3. Prohibit targeting civilians. Doing so is a war crime. Number 4. Recognize the right of civilians to be protected from the dangers of war and receive the help they need. Every possible care must be taken to avoid harming them or their houses, or destroying their means of survival, such as water sources, crops, livestock, etc. Number 5. Mandate that the sick and wounded have a right to be cared for, regardless of whose side they are on. Number 6. Specify that medical workers, medical vehicles and hospitals dedicated to humanitarian work cannot be attacked. Number 7. Prohibit torture and degrading treatment of prisoners. Number 8. Specify that detainees must receive food and water and be allowed to communicate with their loved ones. Number 9. Limit the weapons and tactics that can be used in war to avoid unnecessary suffering. Number 10. Explicitly forbid rape or other forms of sexual violence in the context of armed conflict. A major part of international humanitarian law is contained in the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949. Nearly every state in the world has agreed to be bound by them. Many provisions of international humanitarian law are now accepted as customary law, that is, as general rules by which all states are bound. International humanitarian law applies only to armed conflict. It does not cover internal tensions or disturbances such as isolated acts of violence. The law applies only once a conflict has begun, and then equally to all sides regardless of who started the fighting. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.